Hey everybody, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. I'm Wyatt, joined by Alex this week, and we're going to be reviewing the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre from Netflix.
What'd you think? How'd you like it? I know you were really looking forward to this.
Any new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, I expect it to be pretty garbage. At this point, this has a long. If anybody has watched, if you haven't, go watch our preview video for Texas Chainsaw Massacre we released a couple weeks ago. I kind of gave my thoughts on all the past sequels and prequels and everything. So it has a history of being garbage. This movie, it seems like there's two opinions on it as of right now. People, well, none of them, nobody thinks it's a masterpiece or great by any means. But
No.
there are some people who are tolerable of this movie, and some people who just outright think it's just garbage, like the rest of the movies. This one, I'm actually pleasantly surprised on. I was entertained through the whole movie. There are some things I didn't like about it, of course. Probably not one I'm going to rewatch at all or a bunch of times, but
Ever.
uh, I was entertained throughout, and it did its job for me.
I'm gonna preface with one. I don't even like the original that much.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but like, it's never gonna crack my top 10 list. Like, it's not even one of my favorite slashers. It's real far down there. I get the
Yeah,
cultural impact of the first one. It was real gritty. It was real, like something nobody's seen before when it came out. But I was already desensitized by the time I saw it, and I was like, eh. So it's
yeah,
fine to me. Like,
and
I don't hate it. It's fine.
that's the reason I don't really like a lot of most of the sequels or prequels, because I don't see the original as a slasher. Really, it's not really a slasher because
It's like a grindhouse
he's
thing.
not really going around just like looking for people to kill. It's just kind of these kids kind of just find their way into the wrong situation, and it's just a bunch of
Yeah.
messed up people. But I never really thought of Leatherface as a slasher. They try to turn him into one eventually in like all the other sequels, especially this one where it's like I don't really like the direction they went with Leatherface because he never really was that slasher. Like how they in this movie they make him out like kind of like a Jason or a Michael, or he's just like this big honking brute that'll just has pretty much above human strength,
Yeah.
as you see in the movie.
This 70-year-old man,
Yeah,
because he's fucking old at this point, like
exactly.
real
And
old.
I don't know. I just never saw the original as a slasher. Now I am on the opposite. The original Texas Chainsaw is one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Yeah,
It's
you
definitely my top five.
yeah, you
Um,
like it a lot. I knew that.
yeah, and it's just because of how real and gritty it feels. Like it just feels like you're watching something that was real. Like someone actually went to this house and like filmed this, like snuff film. But it just feels so dirty and gross. Like you need a shower after watching it, and especially like the last like 10-20 minutes of it, or at the dinner table where it's so bizarre, and it's just I don't know. You can just feel the tension and the fear in
Oh,
that scene, and it just hasn't been that nothing in that original has been replicated in any of these sequels or requels or prequels.
I don't
Um,
think you can though. I
I don't
don't
think you
think
can either.
I don't think we're in the cinema day anymore where like that grittiness really like shocks people anymore. Like it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if it's just short attention spans, but if you try to do like a very, because the original was very slow burn too. If you try to do something like that with it, it's going to lose a lot of people as well. So I get what they really been trying to do recently is just go for the ultra violent route with Texas Chainsaw, which it was never really about that, from the
I mean,
original.
it is violent though.
It is violent, but even in the original, there's really like no gore in it at all. There's really no
No.
blood at all. Um, but this one, they amped it up, times 1,000. And in this one, it's produced by Fede Alvarez, who did the Evil Dead remake and Don't Breathe, which those are, especially the Evil Dead remake, is very very gory.
I actually love Don't Breathe. It's one of my favorite modern horror movies.
Yeah, Don't Breathe is
Love Don't
great. I
Breathe.
even like the Evil Dead remake as
Yeah.
well. This one was directed by David Blue Garcia. I think there was a lot of decent cinematography in this movie. There was a lot of good shots in it. I think the quality of it definitely surpassed my expectations. I thought it was just going to feel like a very cheap like movie, like kind of how like the last couple have been, the straight to DVD ones. But I was actually pleasantly surprised with the quality of this movie.
I agree. I don't think it felt like a straight to Netflix movie. Like some of the shots where I was like the big popular ones where he's standing in the the sunflower field. But
Yeah.
like, there's even shots that like I saw and I was like, oh, that's like a good camera angle, a good like somebody put thought behind this. So I agree with that. I don't feel like it felt cheap at all.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not going to go into spoilers as of right now. We're just kind of giving our just our immediate thoughts on the movie. I mean, just the basic premise is just these kids are trying to go to Harlow, Texas to kind of rebuild this town, kind of just spruce it up, fix it
Yeah,
all
they
up.
bought
That
it all.
way they try to, get people to move there. And, they just, of course, there's someone that's still living there on an old orphanage, I guess it is. And they don't know if they have the deed to that place or not. And, it just kind of spirals out of control, which, furthers angers Leatherface, who's been kind of just living there dormant for all these years. Um, and then he just kind of goes on a rant, a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if you will, through the movie.
A
And
mask.
this movie, unlike some of the other ones, actually has a Chainsaw Massacre in
Mm.
it. The bus scene that you see in the trailer, and it does not disappoint. In this movie, they pretty much let you see it all. But overall, man, I thought it wasn't great by any means. There was a lot of lazy writing in it. They brought the character of Sally back from the original because this is supposed to be a direct sequel to the original all these years. And of course, Marilyn. I think Marilyn Burns. She passed a couple years ago. She wasn't able to come back, so they got someone else to play Sally in this one. Totally not needed. They could have did this movie without that character at all.
Yeah.
That was, I think, just bringing that character back. That was a con for me, just because it wasn't needed. But
I think I'm gonna
it
get more
had
into
some
that
had a
on the spoilers, but
yeah, but it
yeah.
had some decent ideas to it. There was a lot of cool kills, which in a slasher like this is really what you want to see. But I thought the story, the way they kind of did it, was interesting to me because it wasn't just a generic, oh, these kids just came in, wrong place, the wrong time, like how most horror movies are. They just stumbled into the wrong area, they broke down or whatever. There was
Yeah.
actually somewhat of a story why they were supposed to be there and what kind of spiraled and made Leatherface want to go out and kill all these people.
Yeah, I mean, again, without getting into too much spoilers, I thought the set pieces were good.
Yeah.
I personally thought the setup was a little weaker. It seems like you like it a little more.
Yeah, just because it
Mine,
was a little different to me. Like
sure.
it was enough,
Yeah.
to kind of draw my attention.
I mean, we touched on it. I think if you're looking for a slasher film, this is the fine. Like I've watched way worse that I've enjoyed.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
if you're looking for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film that like is a correct sequel to the first one, and again, I'll go to this more in the spoiler review. I don't think it's where you need it to be. I think it's a
Yeah,
good slasher film though.
I
So
agree, and that was a point I wanted to make as well. It's a pretty good slasher movie, not a good Texas Chainsaw movie at all. You could
yeah,
easily replace Leatherface with just some generic killer somewhere, just
anybody.
someone made up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I totally agree. Is there now the characters? A lot of people were complaining about them being annoying. Yes, there were some annoying characters. I feel like they weren't as bad by the end of the movie as they were, for the first half where they were just insufferable in the first part.
They were
Uh,
inside.
especially like the first you see, I think his name is Richter. The guy that was there helping them build up the town,
Yeah,
who they
yeah,
met
yeah.
there, and he just kind of drives in his truck, and she immediately just starts insulting him right away. It's like you automatically don't like these kids
That
from the
that
get
girl
go.
had the biggest arc for me. The Broad City girl. I don't know what her name was, but she
Yeah,
looked like she looked
eyebrows.
like yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we kept calling her Broad City because she looks like Elaine from Broad City, but
Yeah, she does.
she was insufferable in the beginning.
Oh yeah,
But later in the film, I did start being like, all right, like I hope she gets out. Like
yeah.
I hope she
She
makes
wasn't
it.
as bad.
Yeah, she helps herself. One because she's not dumb like some of these. We'll get there, but like she had some redeemable moments, and I'm like, yeah, that's the smart decision. Get the fuck out. But we'll
Yeah.
we'll get at that.
And like we said before a little bit, yeah, the gore in this one is top notch. Tons of blood, tons of a lot of gruesome, disgusting moments in this one, which they have ramped up in these newer Texas Chainsaws. It wasn't really something that was present in the first couple. As far as Leatherface, now, what are your thoughts as far as Leatherface, not non-spoilery, I guess, if you can.
And I'm trying not to get spoilery. I like the revival of visiting these people we've seen in the 70s years later.
Hmm.
This isn't the first movie to do that, but we'll get into that. But
Yeah.
like where I like that revival, and I like Leatherface as like kind of not a sympathetic character, but like he's just not mentally there. Like that's kind of Leatherface's shtick, you know?
Yeah, he's
Like
kind
he's a
of
simpleton.
yeah, he was a
Yeah,
simpleton that was raised,
in a fucked
around
up
the wrong
family.
yeah, exactly
Yeah,
around the wrong people.
yeah.
And you
So
saw that even in the original one. He has like a brain of a child. He's always like screaming, or he just doesn't know what's going on.
exact. So I like the actor who played him. He was big, he was intimidating, which is what I think of when I think of Leatherface.
Yeah,
Is like just the big, intimidating brute. The betrayal, I'm actually in. I'm in for the betrayal. I thought he looked pretty good. I think they could have went deeper with him, but
I think
he's
they could
pretty
have
good.
as well, especially because they kept what he's been doing and everything. I mean, this isn't very, but they kept it very vague as
Yeah,
far as what he's been doing all these years. He's just kind of there. But I thought, the way they portrayed him, he was okay. I think the mask could have been a little bit better in this one. They could have did something a little bit
I'll
more
get to the
interesting
mask.
as
Yeah,
far as that.
yeah.
But we won't go into why, because it
I'll
is
get
a
to the
part of the
mask. Yeah,
story here.
yeah.
But overall, I thought he was okay. He does have like superhuman strength a little bit, where it's like, all right, this we've seen this before. He's not Jason. He's not Michael. They should have kind of kept him. You know,
Yeah,
I understand you can't make him act like a 70-year-old man, but I mean,
but
you
he
kind of went a
is.
little overboard at some points with it.
He is a 70-year-old
I
man,
understand, but I mean,
though.
like you can't make him like like barely walking and stuff.
That's the movie I want to see.
But they could have toned him down a little bit in this one to kind of make it like, I don't know. I know they wanted to make a direct sequel all these years later, but I don't know how to explain it. They just it wasn't as grounded as like the original one was, you know.
He didn't need to be as brutal as he was, and not that I'm minding the
Oh yeah.
brutality of it,
Yeah.
but the fact that you have where he was too strong, too agile for being a 70-year-old man, and just like all the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, you're on his turf. Like this is a place he's lived for 50 years. For him to just kind of be wandering the streets, like they could have did something creative. Like yeah, he's old. He isn't like
Yeah.
chasing people down anymore.
They could have
But
had
this,
him like
yeah,
sneaking around and like
exactly.
grabbing people or like setting traps up for
This is
some people.
his turf. He's been here for 50 years in this town that this movie's based on.
Yeah.
And just like I don't know, I felt like it could have been more of that. And I thought they were gonna and I don't want to get spoiler, but I thought they were gonna get into that in the set piece in the end there.
Yeah.
But they never did. It just never happened. Never came to be.
Would you recommend this as of right now to anybody if they haven't seen it?
Yeah, I would. I would personally. Now, most of these movies I watch for these reviews, I always watch Marissa, who
Hmm.
isn't a huge horror fan, and she was not into it at all. She just did not care.
Annette didn't
But
like it at all either.
Marissa came out though, and she did at the end say, "Oh, I kind of liked it," you know. Like, so I would recommend it. I don't even think you really need the first one to watch it.
I
I think
agree.
stands alone by itself. Unlike other movies, which I'll get to again in the spoilers, but I think it stands well. I mean, go in with it's a straight to Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Like go in with the expectations you need to go. But I would watch it. I like it. I don't regret the watch.
I agree. I would recommend watching it, especially if you're a fan of slashers. There's a pretty good slasher movie. Like you said before, it's not a very good Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. But with the history of all the other terrible movies in the franchise, I would probably rank this one higher up than a lot of the other ones. I
For
wouldn't say
sure.
it's nowhere near the original, and wouldn't even put it up there with the remake at all. But I would say I would rank it maybe below the remake, next there to like the prequel, like the beginning or whatever it's called, which was the prequel to the remake. I would probably rank it either beside that one or below that one.
Now
But I would recommend it though.
your knowledge is better. What's the one with Matthew McConaughey? Is
That's
that
the
the
fourth
remake?
one. That's the
That's
Next
my favorite.
Generation.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, and
I
if
just
you
like
haven't
seeing
watched
that.
the preview video for this, we released a couple weeks ago. Go watch that. I kind of give you my thoughts on that one. Matthew McConaughey is worth the price of watching it alone.
That's
You know,
awesome. He's
it's
hilarious
a
in it.
pretty bad movie, but Matthew McConaughey, he has a performance in it. It's worth seeing.
The
He's so
dinner
crazy.
scene, the dinner scene with Matthew McConaughey is fucking like classic.
Oh
Like
yeah.
all you gotta watch is that scene. I'm not getting sidetracked, but that's my favorite. It's like that one and then the rest of them.
My brother here is tired of what's her name's face. and he wants a new one. It just happens to be he wants this face right here. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Make sure to like and subscribe. As always, make sure to check out all the content across the channel here. We do have some new content that is going to be coming out here in the next couple weeks. We're not ready to announce as of quite yet, but we got something brewing in the works, so be on the lookout for that. Go follow us on Twitter at Waves 5 Media and Squad Pod Sports. Go follow Tap That and like and subscribe at Tap That Reviews. And we'll see everybody next time.